So a really long time ago, back in the mid-80s when I was in high school, I suffered a dislocated patella. What I did was I took this kneecap here and I slid it all the way out of this known as a condyle, all the way out to the side of my leg, messing around playing football in the backyard. And for the longest time, I had a limitation in the motion of my knee years after it happened. And it was only after I got to PT school that I figured out how to regain that lost little bit of flexion and extension in my knee. And it made the biggest difference. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to regain a little bit of lost flexion or extension if this pertains to you. So stay tuned. Everyone, welcome to the front row. Today in the front row, we're going to talk about how to regain knee flexion and extension, even if it's been a long period of time. Like I told you earlier, I suffered my knee injury in the mid-80s, I think my junior year in high school, and I graduated in 86, so this was 1985. And it was probably not until close to 10 years later that I learned how to mobilize my knee correctly to regain that motion. So let's get right into it. The first thing we have to do is understand the simple biomechanics of the knee. We want to think of this knee as this hinge joint, but there's a small but important amount of internal rotation and external rotation of this tibia. And this is my reference point right here, the tibial tuberosity. When I go into extension, which is the ability of my leg to go straight, there's a small but important, I'm going to exaggerate a little bit, there's a small but important amount of external rotation that has to occur. So if you're an individual or you're working with someone that doesn't have full extension of their knee, maybe after ACL surgery or total knee replacement, oftentimes rather than just working it straight up into extension, as you get to the end, if you can work a little bit on externally rotating the tibia, that allows you to get that end range of extension. When I work into flexion, it's the opposite. I need to work into tibial internal rotation to regain that full flexion. If that makes sense. I'm going to try to show you what it might look like if you actually had a client that you were working with here. So let's say we're working on increasing flexion. And this is the tibial tuberosity here. So we want to internally rotate it as we go into flexion. Now I'm exaggerating the motion. The motion isn't quite this dramatic. But just for the sake of this video, I'm trying to let you understand it. So if I'm trying to work on gaining flexion out of this knee, I'm not just going to push straight into it. As I start to get to the end range of flexion, what I'm going to do is, once again, I'm exaggerating, but I'm going to start to superimpose a little bit of an internal rotation, because I know as I go into full flexion that this tibia has to internally rotate. If this was actually a real person, I like to come through here, get my fingers around this tibial plateau, and then as I come into flexion, I start to work on internally rotating it. As I come back into extension, I try to externally rotate. So internal rotation and external rotation. Along the way, you can do some contract, relax if you need to. You can do a little bit of mobilization to it, maybe a grade 1 oscillation to get it to loosen up a little bit. But remember, don't push straight in, internally rotate it just a little bit. If I'm working on extension, I'm not just going to push straight down and just assume it's tightness of the hamstring that's limiting that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work on providing a little bit of an external rotation to this tibia. Once again, I'm exaggerating, here's our marker, but I'm going to go into external rotation as I go into extension. So I might be working on mobilizing it here, and as I go into extension, I'm going to externally rotate that tibia as I put a little bit of a downward force into that knee. One thing I've learned from doing a bunch of these videos now is that invariably I'm going to get the question, hey Ed, how do you do it on yourself? Because I don't have anybody that's going to work with me. So here goes. I don't recommend being on a moving stool, but this is what I've got right here. So this is my right leg here. In this example, I'm going to pretend that I don't have that full flexion of my knee. So rather than just coming forward and working on flexion without doing any type of rotation, what I'm going to do is, once again, the spine of the tibia here is a nice little marker. I'm going to come through here, and as I go into flexion, remember it's internal rotation. So I'm going to come through here, and I'm going to literally try to turn this tibia in. Now, what's going to happen is my whole leg's going to want to turn in, and you don't want that. You want to just try to rotate this tibia, and once again, it's subtle. It's not going to be a huge rotation, but I'm going to rotate it in, and I'm still going to try to keep my knee and my hip all lined up straight here. I'm going to internally rotate it, and then I'm going to come forward as far as I can into knee flexion. Cranking on that tibia into internal rotation and coming forward to improve knee flexion. What I like to do with this is I'll have clients do about 5 of these with the internal rotation. Then I'll say take your arms off and now work as far as you can without it, because ultimately we want that motion just to occur automatically, and oftentimes it just kind of gets stuck or gets a little tight after an injury, so it's important to work on that. Now I'm going to work into extension. So rather than just pushing straight down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come once again, hook around the spine of the tibia. As I come into extension, I'm going to try to promote a little bit of external rotation and back up again. External rotation and push down. Once again, I'll do 5 of those, 5 of those, and I'll do 5 without, slowly working on trying to get better extension. Then of course, if you've got hamstring tightness or popliteus tightness, you can work on stretching that out as well. As we talk about this tibial internal and external rotation based upon whether or not we're going into flexion or whether or not we're going into extension, understand that there has to be a muscle that's responsible for that motion. The muscle that's responsible for helping to contract and internally rotate that tibia during active movement is the popliteus. Oftentimes the popliteus is a big issue as well too. So doing this manual mobilization in conjunction with stretching and trigger point work to the popliteus is where the magic occurs. I've already have a video on the popliteus, and I'll put the link at the end of this video. So you might want to take a look at this video, take a look at the popliteus, get educated on it a little bit more, and then see if you can't make a difference. If you guys have any questions on knee flexion extension or rotation of the tibia or popliteus, please let me know. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so, because I would love to hit 10,000 subs by the end of 2020. I don't think that's asking too much. And if you have any questions, let me know, and good luck.